So a little bit about me. Um, 32 years full-time employee. I retired in 2023. They asked me to come back to help out with some anything safety, which you could do that every day, and projects. So I was just telling her we're working on upgrading our liquid fill point system, salt conveyor, been working on some sign shop specs, all that fun stuff. So anyways, been in public works almost 34 years, and you could see my former responsibility were snow and ice, liquids production, do a lot of ditching in the summertime, a lot of road grading, still have 23 miles of gravel roads. So just to give you an idea map wise, and again, I got a lot of pictures to show everybody, so I hope I'm not going too fast. And I know she's recording this, so I'm a visual guy. So anyways, you see Detroit up there in the right hand corner. We have almost 700 lane miles of road to maintain. Some of those are gravel. We still have 20 miles of gravel roads left. We are the ninth largest municipal street network in the Oakland County. In our county, we're just north of Wayne County, which Detroit's in. High level service. Folks around here expect high level service, and if you don't, you're going to hear about it. We were blessed 12, 14 years ago now, the Excellent Snow and Ice Award. We're very proud of that, and we are accredited to the APWA. That's quite the process. We just went through that again, an audit, and I think we're going on, 8 years with our accreditation. So, anyways, just to give you a snippet of what our road network looks like. Everything with the colored major roads are our six major salt routes, and then we have little city of Farmington in the middle of us. At one time, this whole area was Farmington Township, and then the incorporated city of Farmington Hills about 50 years ago. It's 51 now, and Farmington kept their little niche down there along Grand River. Very nice little town. But anyways, as I was talking to Allison with too, we have a lot of county, state DOTs that run through our city. So I'm sure a lot of you guys get a lot of questions about jurisdiction and why you're not plowing what. So this is a very busy scale or map here. My buddy Dwayne Poole helped me throw this together. So the bottom is 2001 all the way up to current. It basically just shows you a quick snapshot of where we started with salt usage. So back in 2001, we were close to 10,000 ton a year or for that season. And now we're down, we average anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 maybe. We've had some pretty light winters the last few years, so that's helped. But as you can see, just want to give you an idea of how many events we usually get. We average probably 30 to 35 now. We used to average more than that. The last really too bad, really active winters we had was about 10, 12 years ago, 13, 14, 14, 15. We had almost 100 inches of snow and a lot of events. So I don't know if visually if that helps you out with what kind of materials we've been using, where we've been going with best practices. So anyways, best practices. Allison wanted me to touch on Wintermaid's best practices. I'm not going to read all this stuff, but basically safety number one, your staff, your team, make sure mentally and physically, hopefully your well-being's good. Team know where all the SDS sheets are. Make sure they know the equipment before they get into it. Try to get some training done. I'm gonna talk a lot about that. Communication, right? That's everything. Winter readiness, pre and post trip inspections, communicating to the maintenance department what's either working or what's not. But a lot of ways to communicate these days. Some of them they aren't real good when you're driving, but we have Nixle system here, group text, emails, blah 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 blah. We do a lot of meetings just so people can vent, believe it or not, try to get ideas from the whole team. Touch on that. Resources, another big thing you need. Best practices. I know everybody's challenged these days with their budgets. Some communities are more blessed than others. Our community's been really well supported by our city council and our residents. They do believe in helping us out, try to get the right tools when we need them. But again, you can team up with your neighbors. There's a lot of shared services out there, co-ops, mutual aid agreements. Lean on your neighbors. You don't have to reinvent the wheel if you want to get into more liquids or you want to get into help with calibration and whatnot. There's all kinds of people out there that are willing to help you in this industry. Budget, again, you got to have the money, right? So justify equipment the best you can. The reason why you need it. Think about refilling your materials in the spring, not wait till the fall. Try to stay a season ahead or two. We use a lot of multi-use equipment. A lot of it has to do with, we use a lot of hook loaders. So basically the same chassis with very, very different bodies on them. So try to use one chassis for a lot of things instead of having multiple trucks for different activities. Again, train, train, train. You can't do enough of that. And I know being on the road, it got boring after a while sometimes. And then when you're as a supervisor, you're like, well, I want to get some stuff done. But it's very important to train your staff, make sure everybody's on the same page. Expect the worst, deal with what they throw at you. That's my motto. Whether it's an aging water main break that's got ice all over the road or whatever. But again, we got a lot of our laborers right now going through the FEMA and NIMS training. We've had a little bit of a lull here last week with a really bad cold snap. So trying to catch up on some of that stuff when you can. We're very fortunate. We have a state-ran APWA Road Scholar program and the Public Service Institutes, your LTAPs, a lot of good resource training out there. APWA, Allison, Solwise, all that stuff, clear roads. Again, and I'm going to keep harping on this in the next 10 to 15 minutes, but mechanical means first. Try to plow off as much as you can. That's a huge best practice that's often overlooked. I didn't always do it in the early 90s when I was a laborer and became an operator. I didn't know any better. But plow as much as you can every time that you can. Calibration, I'll touch on that. Very, very important. I mean, we do our liquids, we do our granulars, we're going to talk about our joysticks, even trying to check your pavement temperature sensors. If you're running those, if not, and you do get them, it's something else you need to check to make sure they're accurate. Level service, we'll talk about that. I got some pictures in here. Are we a bare road policy? Are we a covered road policy? Are your majors different than your locals? Stuff like that. Equipment needs, what do you need? You gotta let your uppers know what you need or what you want or what you'd like to have. Include the mechanics in that too. Hopefully everybody's on the same page with that. Again, you need support. You need to let them know what you need. And it could take a year or two to get a piece of equipment. There's no denying that. I'm sure a lot of you know that pain. Pre-winter, pre-trip and post-trip inspections on the equipment, very, very important. Again, involve the mechanics with that. Buy-in, just huge. Change is hard sometimes. You got to have accountability. But again, it all takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And just remember, we all are first responders. So fire and police get a lot of credit for that. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. They have very, very important, dangerous jobs. But most of the time, if it wasn't for us clearing the road, they probably couldn't get to their emergency or whatever. So just remember that you are first responders, and that's a very, very important job. So safety, health, fatigue, rest, eat. We've been trying to focus on this a lot with our national programs the last 10, 15 years, even our local winter ops program up at CTT and LTAP. Again, you're no good to anybody if you're sleepy, if you're not feeling very well, if you're tired, you had enough. Let your supervisor know, go home, or you need a break, you need a couple hour nap or whatever it takes. But just keep your health in the forefront of your important factors to think about. Again, another important factor is readiness, safety, prevention, maintenance, right? Get your equipment ready for the season. We get the trucks all out, hopefully sometime before Halloween in this area. Get them up and running, make sure everything's clean, make sure everything's greased, get them calibrated, if any cutting edges, whatnot. We use a lot of these trucks for ditching and hauling stone and all that stuff in the summertime. So they don't get a lot of love in the summer. So hopefully your staff or you afford your staff to have enough time to get that done. Pre-trip, post-trip inspection forms, again, very, very important. I know a lot of agencies don't require these, but again, for a legal angle, I would do these every day. If something happens, unfortunately, you need something to back yourself up. They're going to ask for these probably. So again, just think about this. It is a legal document, and again, cover your you know what. Try to err on the side of caution, be safe. Communication. So that's a huge part of safety, right? Make sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody wants to know what's going on. When I was on the road, everybody wanted to know what the game plan was. The news does a great job, but they hype things up so bad, usually 2, 3 days before an event. So when do we plan on coming in? What's the best guess? Just try to communicate that to your team, or communicate it to other team members if you're not the supervisor or whatever. And again, there's so many ways to get the word out. If you don't have time for a meeting, and you can send out a group text or a chat or whatever, just try to get everybody on the same page and let them know what's going on. Check my time here, make sure I'm doing good. Level of service, again, make sure everybody's on the same page. My good buddy Dewey Amsler passed away a few years ago, but again, top left corner, bare roads, bottom right, snow covered. What is your level? What's your expectation? What is your level of service? What is the public expected of you? Maybe it'll get away with the other two pictures, and it's just fine because it's a local road, lower speeds. So again, try to make sure what your expectation is and what needs to be get done during that event. Resources, lean on your neighbors. Again, you got neighbors, you got co-ops, you got vendors. You buy a piece of equipment, lean on them to help get you trained, make sure you know how things are operating. What's the safety aspects of that piece of machinery? A couple pictures there, just to remember how to calibrate. The picture on the left was us and the vendor. We filmed it, and we got a lot of stuff on YouTube now for Rexroth controllers and whatnot. And mainly it's just to help our staff, but we try to help everybody else out too. And the picture on the right, we're helping another community calibrate some trucks there. So I don't know if everybody realizes this, but on a general average, up to 45% of your annual budget is spent on winter maintenance, maybe more in some places. Again, just think about that. Almost half your budget's gone. Sometimes people have shorter winters. They're only 3, maybe 4 months, long. Again, what do you have to show for that besides safety and commerce? You don't have much to show for that. The snow's all gone, everything's melted. So just think about that when it comes to a budget, a monetary number. Again, training, teamwork. Reach out to folks if you're not already doing that. Networking is so crucial. These are a lot of our partners in the state here, different cities, APWA chapters, our local LTAP are great. SEMCOG down in Detroit, they help out like 5 or 6 counties around here. Again, don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's always people out there to help you. Again, lean on your vendors. There's all different kind of resources out there. Try to make sure everybody's trained up on a process or a piece of equipment before they go out, and just throw them the keys and say, there you go, good luck. That's not a good way to do it. Mine wasn't that bad back in the early 90s, but almost that way. So again, train as much as you can and use those other resources out there. Like today, Assault Wise, YouTube, there's all kinds of great information out there. So again, mechanical means first when it comes to best practice. Try to get as much snow and ice as you can. This is a really old picture here, but I love it because we got the front plows on, which you don't run those a lot, and we got our underbody trying to scrape as much as we can right before we put down any de-icer. So again, plow as much as you can first. And best practices, I touched on calibration earlier. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but calibration should be done every year in the fall preferably, and rechecked if there's a major pump or something that goes. Make sure that truck is accurate. And again, it's good for the public, consistent goals for your department, and target application rates for you to start. Can you back off on those? Do you got to increase them in certain events? Yes. But again, it all goes into helping the environmental sustainability. So we didn't start calibrating trucks till about 18 years ago. I went to my first snow conference in 04, started thinking about, we just hook our trucks up and make sure they work every year. That's about all we do. And then we had the old sander valves back then, and put it on 2, 3, 4, whatever. Didn't have a clue what was coming out of the back of the truck. Didn't know if my boss was asking me to put a certain amount down, if it was accurate. So again, we started about 18 years ago, and here we are today. We're calibrating everything. Again, why? It's a best practice. We have a lot of lane miles to cover. It's really helped us out with our salt usage besides a lot of other tools in the toolbox. Again, less salt use, better for the environment when you can, when it's safe to do so. And again, big believers in uses of liquids depending on how busy the winter is. So again, if you're going to do your granular, make sure you do your liquids. A lot of overlooked calibration too. You can adjust a lot of these new joysticks. You can adjust for feel, like the old cable systems. You could really feel everything. A lot of these new joysticks, I've been on the truck a few times. You can adjust those for speed, feel, and everything else. So just things to think about to help you as an operator or your staff. Things to think about. You can adjust a lot of things in these newer vehicles. Again, check your road temperature sensors if you're running them, if you can, or send them back to the manufacturer if you can't in-house. Just make sure they're accurate so you got the better information to make good decisions with. Hope that makes sense. I threw this in here because we got audited by, it's our local DEQ, and they did ask us if we were calibrating trucks. So when you do calibrate, document that, the date you did it on, what truck you did it on, so on and so forth. Again, it's going to come in handy for you down the road if you have documentation, if you go through an audit. Again, payment temps, best practice. You should always be basing your decisions on any kind of application rate or whatever you're going to start applying, whether it's 35 or 31 hour, right? Make sure you base those on payment temps, not air temperature, payment temperature. Make sure, try to remember that. A lot of tools to do that. There's handheld tools. There's truck mounted there on the mirror. The handheld ones, you just got to be careful. Most of those devices got to be acclimated out to the existing weather for at least 15, 20 minutes. So make sure you read your instructions. If that's what you're using, that's fine. We still have a lot of agencies around there using them. Just make sure you get accurate readings. This is kind of a calibration tool. Years ago, we had Mark Cornwell come in. We were trying to teach bounce and scatter, how far the salt actually scattered, depending on how fast your spinner was going, how fast your truck was going. It was pretty cool. As you see visually, they were going through there with dry salt and whatnot. Really good tool visually for people to see. Get a little bit of less speed or slow that spinner down to get the salt where you need it. Again, use of liquids. We're a big user of liquids. Back in 05, we really started jumping into the game. 07, 08, we started doing anti-icing, trying to be proactive. We've always pre-wetted, whether it's been an overhead shower bar or right at the spinner. And then we started doing DLA pretty heavy at times in 12 and 13. Just a little, this is an old stake truck we had about 12, 13 years ago. Didn't have a plow on it, had about a 1/4 inch of snow out there, laid a little bit of brine down. It was, pavement temperature was 16 degrees out there. Again, the stuff works. Temperature was rising that day, didn't dilute out on us. So get just some things to think about, a lot of tools in your toolbox. Sanding, we use a lot of sand on our gravel roads. I know it's not good for the environment. It gets in and plugs up stuff, but that's the only tool we have to use. We do add a little grit now, but that's just a good example of some of the crappy icy events that we have in the great state of Michigan, especially in the southeast corner. Some other good pictures of precip starting out as either rain or mixed, turning all over to ice or snow. Our road graders have fun peeling that stuff up. But again, it's not always just that dry, fluffy snow that you're dealing with. Give you a good example. This was 2 weeks ago. Started at 7 in the morning. The surface temp was approximately 34, and by the next morning we were down to 17. We had everything else thrown in us that day, so it was just up and down, up and down. Very hard, challenging event to manage. Just a real quick, simplified graph just to kind of show you linear where our salt tonnage was 24 years ago to where it is today, and our number of events, and you kind of see how our liquids usage just kept creeping up as a tool. And just to give you an idea, if you're a visual person, you want to kind of see that. Again, we started making brine in-house, so that salt usage includes making all of our brine for our department, our parks department, and some other agencies as well. Again, just a cost factor. Pull the truck out. That's a single axle truck, approximately 5 tons. For Michigan prices, that's $300 every time that truck goes out just in materials. That's not including liquid, labor, material, all the other good stuff, the intangibles, but TAM's twice that much, $600. Again, we're all here to try to help out with the environment. It's not just us putting a lot of stuff into the environment. You got water softeners, you got, fertilizers. Everybody's fertilizing lawn. They want a nice green, lush lawn. But again, all that stuff goes into the environment. A lot too much of it can mean a bad thing. So just keep that in mind. 1 teaspoon of salt does contaminate 5 gallons of water. I just think it's a great visual, but my friend Diana Clonch, I'd like to use that one. This is a visual from the DEQ back in 21. They came out with sulfate water quality value mandate, and in turn, they adjusted our MS4 for that for our stormwater. So again, if you want to read this, but they're on it, they're checking it. It's a real deal in Michigan. So lastly, I'll leave you with, it's very hard to keep everybody safe, balance the environment. You got budget constraints. You got what tools you have in your toolbox. Use what you can. And again, public safety is number one, right? A lot of things going into trying to get to one goal, get everybody home, to school, what have you, safe and sound. So there's a lot of things to think about, but try to consider all three of those when you're making decisions. A lot of tools in the toolbox. Stay versatile, flexible, and efficient as you can. And again, if it wasn't for our team, we wouldn't have anybody. We do a lot of potlucks. We try to host workshops here, bring our vendors in, invite other communities. So again, I'm not going to read all these again, but I'll leave you with this. Top wishes for best practices: teamwork, make the dream work, safety, attitude. Hopefully you got some champions in your department that'll help lead that way. Training network, very invaluable. All kinds of good stuff in there. Environmental challenges, again, plow first, try to have a good attitude, try to get buy-in, the balance of safety, commerce, good stewards of the planet. Staffing, do you have enough staffing? I'm sure everybody's hurting for that. Do you have enough equipment? Do you have enough mechanics? Keep your fleet rolling. And again, doesn't happen quick, but change, accountability, and buy-in comes over time. So with this, I'd just like to thank my whole team here at Farmington Hills and everybody I've got to work with throughout the country. It's been a blessing. I really enjoyed doing this. Again, we are first responders, and just try to remember that when you're out there working your rears off. There's my contact info. Anybody can call me anytime, email me anytime. I'd be glad to help anybody. I know, Allison, I ran over a little bit. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I believe that's what you asked me to do. And
yeah, you're
sorry about that. I went through it
no,
quick.
you don't need to apologize, Brian. That was excellent. Yeah,
Okay.
so people who are listening in right now can ask any questions that you have of Brian in the chat. So you can type that into the YouTube chat. I know sometimes people have difficulty with that. If you do for any reason, you can also email me, wisaltwise@gmail.com, and I'm going to try to be watching both of those locations for questions. So I was thinking while we give people a minute for questions, Brian, if you would just maybe kind of recap a little bit. I want to like kind of maybe just connect some of the dots for people because both you and Scott from New Hampshire, who spoke earlier, talked about dropping salt use by, around 50%. I think that last slide that you had, someone was quoted by saying they dropped their salt from 400 pounds of lane mile to 200 pounds of lane mile. So I think for the average person who doesn't work in winter maintenance, we think it's either, we put salt down, we keep people safe, or, we don't put salt down and we're taking care of the environment. And you showed the kind of that three-legged stool and that, we have seen these salt reductions. So could you talk a little bit about what has allowed you to still maintain public safety while dropping those salt rates down? I think you talked about some of the practices, but just to kind of explain that.
Yeah, well, I think at least three things, right? Having your staff educated and buying. When we first calibrated our first truck, we had no clue what it was putting out. We thought we were probably putting out 400 or 500 pounds of lane mile. I think on the lowest setting, the drop tailgate spreader, we were running to 800 pounds of lane mile. Okay. I didn't know anything about balance and scatter back in the 90s. I had a supervisor take me out, say, you got to slow down. You got it. This isn't a parking lot. You got to slow down, put the salt in the center line, put the 2-lane road, place it where it needs to be. Again, calibration, training, use of liquids. There's a lot of tools that go into that toolbox to help, if you can, cut back on salt. Now, if you have a severe ice event, you're going to probably run 500-600 pounds of lane mile, try to get things safe. But again, 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago here, we were getting negative temperatures, and you're not going to melt any salt or any snow or ice with that. So again, there's a lot of events out there that you can cut back on the salt usage and still get performance depending on what your level of service is. But you got to know what's going on out the back end of your truck. You got to know what your expectations are. So again, this didn't happen overnight. Again, I started really tracking it heavy back in the early 2000s. We were almost 9,000 tons a year. We're down to 3 to 4,000. And again, we've had a few light winters, but again, a lot of that stuff goes into that work between education, calibration, buying from your crews. Can 400 or 300 pounds really do the job, or do I need 500, or do you need that big white plume coming out the back of my truck? Most of the time you don't, but there are certain situations where you do. So you got to it's a hard balance. You got to make sure safety's number one, but number two, what makes sense. And again, I'm guilty of it. I never dropped a plow before an inch or two back in the day. We would just burn off the salt. I hate to admit that. Didn't know any better. So once I got into the truck, got some more training, went to APWA, got more training as a supervisor, everything started to click. So again, calibration, training, tools in your toolbox.
Well, no, thank you, Brian. I mean, there's a lot there. There is a lot of education and training,
It's a
right?
lot.
It's more than just hand someone the keys and go, right? So,
No, and every event's different, right? You might be
mm,
able to go out and just do all liquid in one event. Amazing salt savings, amazing results. You got instant melt, you're good. But then you're going to have some crazy ice events where you're going to be using a lot of salt or a lot of materials. So it's just that balancing act to make sure things are safe, but try to help out the environment. Everybody's got kids, grandkids, pets, loved ones that they care about, and it all affects them.
I like to say it's both like the art and the science of snow and ice control, right? Like in every event is different. There are endless variables. So we do have
Yes,
a
there
couple
is.
questions here. One is there any groundwater or surface water sampling being done along your roadways to confirm that your decrease in salt use is having a beneficial effect on the water?
I don't know specifically in our city. That's a great question. We had a student come here about 10 years ago, started doing a study on that. They lost their funding, and I never got the results of that. But very interesting. I would like to do that, but I know from our material usage, what I've seen here in the last 32 years, I can definitely say we've used a lot less salt in this city by itself. But no, that's a great question. That's If you could do that or have somebody come out and do that, it'd be really, really good.
Yeah. I do know in Wisconsin, well, in Madison specifically, there is some monitoring happening in a couple sites, like specific monitoring where they're trying to work with both, it's the city, the county, private contractors to get everybody on board and to drop salt use. And the city has dropped their salt use by about 40%, I think on average, annual salt reductions. But the contractors is just a whole nother, I'm gonna say like black box slash the Wild West out there. And we haven't seen really much in terms of reductions, even though the city has dropped their salt use. And the thought is, yes, that the other sources, as well as the fact that we've salted our groundwater at this point. So like we're recharging lakes and streams with some pre-salted water. But I am aware of a private site, commercial building, and they are doing some local monitoring in like a stormwater pond, and they've seen the benefits there in the water as they've worked with their contractor to drop salt use on site.
No,
So just a
I'm
lack of
actually
data.
I'm gonna reach out to our Eagle and see what they've got going on since '01. I know COVID things went kind of sideways there for a while. I'll leave you with this. I don't try to pick on one certain entity. I used to be a contractor. I worked for a landscape service, and those guys are up against it. The legalities of and the fear of getting sued and all that stuff. I work with a local group called the MGIA here with landscapers and whatnot. So I do think they're trying to make changes. Number one, because salt has went up so much in the last 20 years. It's driven them to look at other avenues, whether it's liquids or whatever. So I think everybody's in this together. And yes, I can tell you a couple doors down, it looks like the Utah Salt Flats every time so and so salts that parking lot. You're not wrong about that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
just think
no,
it's education and for them, it's got to
Mhm.
be legality. It's got to be a money thing for them, in my opinion. You know,
No, 100%. And I don't mean to throw all the contractors under the bus. We definitely
no,
have
no,
a lot of
yeah,
companies that I've had the privilege of working with in Madison that are like really motivated to embrace change and better technologies. But like you said, that legal, push point for them is the biggest lever, right? And it's on them and it's also on their contract signers, right? So
yeah, yeah,
when your
yeah.
client says, we don't want to get sued, we need you back here again, like it's either, you're doing that sometimes whether it's needed or not,
It's a hard
but
balance, hard balance.
yeah. So we do have tomorrow a focus on policy. And so someone from New Hampshire is going to talk about the limited liability protection that they have had there for the last 10 years. So I
Oh,
think
great,
that's one
great.
program that we could look at trying to replicate in other states to work to support contractors and people on the private side. And then SIMA also, the Snow and Ice Management Association, for those of you not in the industry, does
Yep.
a lot to provide educational kind of training resources for contractors. They have a list of best practices. I'll see if I can kind of find that and put that in the chat here as well. And I've worked with them in Wisconsin. We have a little Midwest, I should say little, it's pretty big, a Midwest Snow and Ice conference that started last year. We're going to do it again here in 2025. They also have a conference out in New Hampshire and then the big national conference too. We've got
Well,
another question. Mhm. Sorry.
Simon's great. Simon's great.
Yeah. Um, Someone's asked, do you send out the street sweepers after the snow is done to collect any undissolved salt?
Um, we don't do that particularly for salt, but we do have a lot of green concrete areas that we either go out and spray with a corrosion inhibited, less, salt liquid, just because mainly the concrete's under or warranty, to be honest with you. So we go out and sand a lot of those areas and they have catch basins. So we try to go out if we can, go out and sweep that up, but we typically don't go out and sweep up the excess salt. In the past, we've never done it, but I have had heard of some communities do require that. I can't name anybody specifically right off the top of my head, but I have had heard communities do that, but I don't know how practical, operationally that is, if that makes sense.
I'm putting in the chat here the SIMA, Snow Ice Management Association best practices link. So you can go to that web link and download that document for free. I think they want to have your email for doing that. And yeah, I would say to kind of echo what Brian said, I know there are municipalities, counties that will sometimes go and sweep up if there's more of like a spill, like quite a bit of extra
Well,
salt, but yeah, not if
yeah.
yeah, it's hard on the streets side. Well,
Well,
we
and
have
just to clarify, the reason we go out and sweep that sand up is because it will plug up the storm catch basins or
Mhm.
infrastructure and whatnot. But again, yeah, if there's a big spill, we have to empty a truck unexpectedly or something's going on strange, we'll go out and clean that up. Absolutely.
um all right, another question. How do you typically handle 1 to 2 inches of snow? You mentioned previously that you didn't plow it in the past, but do you now? Do you salt as well, or only salt, no plow?
Yeah, I know. Again, I was guilty of it in the early 90s. And again, I'm not making excuses, but when I became supervisor in '04, we were paying $20 a ton for salt. Now we're up to 60. It's still a lot less than most of the agencies are paying. But again, knowing that I could go out and plow even a quarter or half inch off and put down much less salt and have a quicker back to bare road policy, it's made so much sense. So, no, we haven't done that probably, I hope, in the last 20 or 25 years. But no, I would say the only time we don't drop the plow is if you just have a real light dust and there's a skip out there where it's so light and fluffy that's blowing around. We'll just go out and spot salt some intersections or spot spray some intersections. But in our agency, it's mechanical means first as much as you can. To the point to back in 13 and 14, we were going through so many cutting edges because we had so many events. We had almost 100 inches of snow that year that we had to go to another neighboring community and get some cutting edges from them just because plow, 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 plow. So sometimes you create your own worst enemy when it comes to parts and stuff like that. But I still think it makes a lot more sense to plow no matter what you can off the road and then treat it with very little chemical.
Excellent. So those are the questions I see right now on the chat. I'm just going to double check here. Do you have a question online? Let's see now if I can find that again here.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see. So there was a question about um, salt truck washing. Do you Are you aware of anybody who has expertise in cleaning unused residual salt from municipal salt trucks? Maybe using the minimum amount of water. This
We
township, yeah, I think that's mostly what they're saying, that, you know, when they wash it, right, it's going to go down the drain, and this person sees large conductivity spikes, you know, when this happens. So trying to figure out ways to recover
so
more of that salt.
so luckily for us, we've had a lot of site improvements at our yard. Everything's curved here, and our wash rack is interior. Everything does drain to the sewer. When it comes to that, we did at one time look into wash water recycling. So, you know, obviously you're washing a lot of salty vehicles or equipment in the winter. Take that water, recycle it, and reuse it either for salt brine or even as wash, you know, wash water. We did look at that. We tried to get in the grant for that. We were denied, but it's a very expensive process if you want to look into that. But there is ways to do that out there.
Yeah.
But we're blessed with none of our stuff that I know of goes outside into the storm drains or storm sewers. It all goes into the sanitary.
I'm
Goes
going to
back to the
put
city of Detroit.
in the chat, I believe it's La Crosse County in Wisconsin has been trying to do that. I think I'm saying trying because I think they ran into some issues. It was tough. And
It's
there was,
very expensive and a lot of equipment needed to do that. You can only imagine the filtering and everything else that's involved. So, yeah, I'd like to see it. It'd be cool.
Mhm. All right. Well, those are the questions that I see right now. So I want to, yeah, thank everybody who joined in. Thank you, Bryan. This was great. As I was watching your presentation, I was taking a couple notes, and I'm going to take a couple screenshots here to put up on the socials and promote your webinar for people who are going to be able to watch it later. But thanks everybody for joining on the live stream. We'll go into our next webinar at, I guess, 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central Time with Matt Whittam from the town of Lynn. So it's a packed day. So thanks, Bryan, for giving us some of your time and preparing, yeah, these slides for us. And I look forward to seeing you in Grand Rapids in a few months.
Yep, I'll see you in April, and you take care of yourself.